We now move on to Morphy's checkmate. Why Morphy's checkmate? You know what? I have no idea. I think it's because nearly every checkmate is named after the great man. And this one, well, it must have occurred in one of his early games. So what is Morphy's checkmate? Well, it's a checkmate you can do when your opponent's king is stuck in the corner of the board, as the black king is stuck here. And it combines your rook and your bishop. And this simple example, where it's white to move and white can play bishop takes f6, giving Morphy's checkmate. And here the bishop attacks the king, and you can see the king is trapped by the pawn on h7 and the rook on g1. So this is a very basic example of Morphy's checkmate. It actually occurs in quite a lot of games, this kind of pattern. And we're now going to look at an actual case from a real game. So let's move over there now. So now an example from the great Nimzowitsch with the white pieces here. And in this position, it was black to move, and black here plays the only move he can do, because otherwise it'd be a piece down. Rook takes d6. So white has three pieces attacking, the bishop, rook and queen, against what I'd say is quite a badly defended king there on g8, because there's not really many pieces defending that king. And in this position, Nimzowitsch comes up with an absolutely fantastic idea, maybe being a student of Morphy's games, which I would not be surprised if he was. So can you see the idea here, which tries to create Morphy's mate? And one of the things, I think so important about these videos is to really picture those mating positions, because once you get used to them, you'll be able to see how you can arrive at them, how you can create them in your own games. And chess is all about patterns. It's all about mesmerizing, memorizing, creating patterns. And that's what you should do here. So it's white to move. Pause the video now. Well, in this position, white can give up the queen but force checkmate. And the right move is the amazing queen to f6, an absolutely brilliant move, because now the queen is threatening to give checkmate on g7. And the only way black can try to play on here is by playing queen takes bishop. But after queen takes queen, you can see that white's easily going to win this position. And what else can black do? Well, queen takes g7 is a major threat. And if you play pawn takes queen, now you can see Morphy's mate being created around the black king. Look for the checks. Rook g4 check, pushing that king into the corner. And once that king goes in the corner, we take on f6 and we have this version of Morphy's mate. The bishop and rook really trapping that king like a wild animal in a trap there in the corner of the board. So I'm just going to give you one more example of Morphy's mate. And I had a bit of a loose end, so I actually created this example myself, just from my own mind. So excuse me if it's a load of rubbish, but hey ho, we've got to have a bit of fun now and again. So let's have a look at a last example of Morphy's mate now. So as I mentioned, for this last example of Morphy's mate, you're going to like dive into my brain for a little bit. I'm sorry there. It's a very scary place. We're taking the white pieces here, and we're trying to force checkmate against black. So again, get your thinking cap on now. You know the final pattern. So what you've got to do is just work backwards. Try to create that final pattern. Look for the most forcing moves first. And in actual fact, white has a number of strong moves in this position. For example, something along the lines of rook g3 might be quite good. But you've also got to be careful you don't play bishop takes f6 here, which is a little trap I set up, because now you're going to fall into the back rank checkmate, queen to e1. So there's a bit of care needed. But really, in these examples, when you're trying to attack your opponent's king with as much force as possible, and here white has a bishop, queen and rook all attacking, you should be looking at the most forcing moves. The most forcing moves in chess are checks. So you start by looking at the checks. There's only one check here. Can you see the checkmate? I'm going to ask you to pause now. Try to work out all the way to the end. Please pause. Well, the forced checkmate is queen takes g7 check. And again, remember with Morphy's mate, you're trying to retain your bishop and your rook. So the queen actually doesn't matter so much. Only one move, king takes g7. And here we play rook to g3 check. The knight cannot block that check because it's pinned to the king. And black has two options here, but they're both completely helpless. If the king goes into the corner, this is a pure version of Morphy's checkmate. Bishop takes f6 is checkmate. And if the king comes the other way, let's say it comes to h6, then now we have a very strong move with bishop d2. And it's going to be checkmate next move. The black king is stuck there. In actual fact, a good way to practice, which I may recommend to you guys watching these videos, is if you want to try to get really the grips of all of these checkmates, why don't you create your own? Why don't you get a checkboard out and say, right, checkboard? Well, you could get a checkboard out, get a chessboard instead. Why don't you get a chessboard out and say, right, I'm going to create an example of Morphy's mate and try to put it on the position on the board where it is white to play and to force a checkmate. And you can do this with the other patterns I'm demonstrating here. It's a good way to use your imagination and to reinforce these patterns which I'm trying to teach in these videos. So give that a go. I think it'd be a very good thing to do. Still more videos in this series, loads more to come. Hope you're enjoying them, and make sure you watch the other videos. Bye for now.